You're live now.
Yeah, hello everyone. You're welcome to another ConeX LinkedIn Live. As you know, we host these lives to give our members a platform to showcase who they are, what they do, what they're passionate about, and also so we can learn from them. So, familiar faces, myself, Angela from ConeX, Adam. So, and then we have, before we go to our guests, I'll introduce someone else in the panel, Paul Gilbert. He's with swimmers. So maybe Paul, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your relationship with Sam and how all of that goes?
Paul Gilbert, Southwest Manufacturing Advisory Service, the one of their I lead on the net zero program that we're currently delivering. SwimS basically specialise in delivering funded or government-based programs, so normally free support and grants to primarily manufacturers, but net zero has taken us way out of manufacturing to all sectors now. Did you say you wanted to know about my connection to Sam?
Yeah. I mean, just a little bit if you can.
Yeah, so I go back quite a while with Sam in terms of his design skills and linking him to other clients. And then I've been discussing sort of ConeX in the early days with him. And it's just really good to see the platform now up and running and live. So well done to all involved.
Thank you very much. So now, our special guests, Harry and Ashley from Balanced Energy. So you guys have the floor. If you could tell us about yourselves, how you got into net zero, what support you offer, your business a bit, and possibly how you joined ConeX and what inspired you about what we're doing.
Okay, yeah, I'll go first on that. So, my name's Harry. I'm one half and director of Balanced Energy. We are a net zero consultancy that works with organisations to develop net zero strategies. Just to go to the point where I met Sam, I actually met Sam through LinkedIn. So we just randomly connected. I saw he commented on something, and I just thought he looks like someone I want to connect with. So I sent him a message, and yeah, from there really now part of the portal, and been to the event at the aerospace in Cornwall, which was brilliant. That was a great evening. So, and that's where we met Sam. So he's then emailed us and asked us to do one of these sessions and talk about net zero, which is what we do. And I'll let Ashley sort of introduce himself, and there you go.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, so as Harry said, I'm the other half of Balanced Energy. So what we do is we're a climate solutions provider, ultimately helping manufacturers and all kinds of businesses navigate the world of net zero, record their emissions, their initial carbon footprint, and helping them put strategies in place to be able to reduce that, to become more sustainable business as we loom towards the target of 2050, which is what the UK government have put in legislation that we will have to be net zero by.
Yeah, so really, I thought we'd just do it as if anyone had any questions, we can answer and sort of just maybe develop into a bit of a conversation from there.
Yeah. I've got questions for you here. I think the first thing I'd want to know is if what would be your advice to businesses that really haven't been involved in any net zero actions, like they've been functioning like they're in the industrial ages and all of that. So what would be the first area? What would be the first advice you have for them?
I think the first, it seems really scary, I think, to start with, and I think it seems expensive, and I think it seems like, oh, we're too small, we don't play a part in that. And I think that attitude is I think that's not the right attitude to say. I think everybody can make that difference, and I think the main thing is to embrace it and to try and understand your measurement, your impact within your own operation. Okay, so and then once you get familiar and confident with the terminology, that's when then you can bring that across your value chain, your supply chain. But it's not something to be scared at, and it really will improve your business by becoming more sustainable. So I think the first thing is really to understand your impact, is to understand that measurement, because without a measurement in anything, you you can't make a reduction or an improvement. So it's understanding what your baseline emissions are within your business, within your operation, and then you have a starting point to be able to chip away and do things potentially differently.
Yeah, just a side note. I mean, for the people watching us live, if you have any questions at all on the conversations or anything you'd want to know specifically about going green, to please feel free to ask. And now my next question is for Paul. Paul,
Mhm.
before we went live, I learned that you've had some work and you've worked with balanced energy. So can you tell us a bit about what like how the experience has been and what the benefits, the impact it has been in your experience?
Yeah, no trouble. So yeah, we deliver a Make It Net Zero program. So that's a funded support program to help companies right across the Southwest get on the journey to net zero. And that program is about trying to break down some of the barriers that Ash has just covered off to try and simplify the journey, give them a helping hand. And as part of that project, we won 2 quite large contracts very quickly. So very early on, the program size trebled, and we basically ran out of resource. So what we needed to do was find a really good, reliable partner who was proficient at carbon footprinting with businesses, used to working with SMEs, who could basically just hit the road running with us and help support the companies we were working with. So we met up with Balanced Energy. They were already using the similar toolkits that we were using. And it's been great. I mean, the client feedback has been really good. The clients, although Balanced Energy are working as subcontractors, I think that the clients just see it as an extension to SwimUs. So that's gone down really well. And it's just been really good. Every client said the same thing at the start. They were worried it was going to be time consuming, complicated. But working with ourselves and Balanced Energy, we've just made the process very simple. And then critically, not just given them that benchmark, but actually mapped out the improvements that business needs to make and the carbon savings.
That's great. That ties into the next question that I was going to ask about. Because we got a question here about so Michael really wants to understand the incentives of it, like the direct benefit it has for his business going
Yeah.
net
So
zero aside abiding to government regulations and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Sorry, Bonnie.
do you want to pick it up, Harry?
Yeah. So I mean, really, the biggest shock to me in all of this, when working with different organisations through loads of different sectors, was I was coming at it of an angle of the environmental benefits of it, that you're doing good for the planet, you're reducing your emissions, and you can be seen to doing so. But what I didn't pay enough attention to was the actual commercial benefits of it. There are huge companies out there now that have to report on their emissions, that are committed to becoming net zero, and they need businesses within their supply chain that are also doing something about their emissions. So you're making yourself more attractable to different supply chains at the same time, and I believe that's a huge incentive for every business wants to grow. Every business wants to work with other businesses, and I think that's the biggest incentive for me that's really kind of shocked me, if I'm honest, is that people have seen, okay, yeah, I get it, I'm doing good, and I can record that, and I can say that I'm doing good for the environment, but it's the commercial aspect of, I want to get ahead of the curve. I don't want to be forced into doing it because the country has a target of 2050. I want to do it because if some other business needs a company to fit into their supply chain, I could be that company, essentially. So let's start the journey now. And I think that's the biggest shock to me so far.
I think if I just add a couple of points on that as well, I think so. There are certain sectors now where, certainly like in construction, or even just going for any government funded contract, you have to have a carbon reduction plan in place, or you can't even get in the door. So that's there now. It's real life, and that's only going to become more stringent, where these tenders are going to be more heavily weighted towards how you're managing your carbon. to, you know, how competitive your price is. It's going to be definitely, we're going to see that come into play more. So I think, and again, just touching on what Harry said, so just people like Tesco's, they do not like to have anybody in their supply chain that's not actively accounting for their carbon emissions or have an improvement in place. So, for example, like Tesco's, they have a corporate PPA where they're actually buying their electricity and selling it onto their supply chain, so they know where it comes from. So it comes from a renewable source. So that came out of COP26, where all listed companies, like Harry said, had to have a net zero target and disclose their carbon footprint. So it's only going to feed down the supply chain to smaller companies. And I think the only other benefit as well from getting on this journey sooner is linking carbon with cash. Ultimately, carbon is cheap. It's cheap. It allows people to emit. Countries that have to offset their emissions are allowed to do it because the price of carbon is cheap. That is going to change radically. It's already changed in the last 18 months, where the price of carbon is increased as more people are voluntary offsetting. Whereas as we get closer to the environmental scientific target is 2030 to reduce emissions by 50% on a global scale to stop global warming by 1.5 degrees. Now, as we get closer to that, and as we get closer to 2050, there is going to be a carbon tax. There has to be, or there has to be some kind of benefit or penalty for people that aren't or are reducing their emissions. So, from a commercial point of view, the more you can mitigate and reduce your emissions, the less you are going to have to pay in the medium term, when this is going to be forced on everybody, because it's going to be the only way that we're going to achieve net zero.
So if I understand you clearly, are there any tax incentives right now, or you're postulating that in the future as we draw closer to 2050, there would be?
So at this moment in time, so certainly for SMEs, there is no penalty or benefit from a monetary, in terms of a taxation point of view, to report your emissions. But ultimately, there will be something that will come down the line that will have to speed up this direction of travel for companies to do something about it. I know in terms of, we've been on a lot of webinars over the last 12 months with the banking sector. So I know that that's affecting. So banks now are going to be looking at how you're managing your carbon and how robust you are there, not just your accounts. And that is that's going to affect how they lend to businesses. That's NatWest have declared that's there, that's out there. And there are certain banks that are all over that kind of process. So, but yeah, in terms of penalties at the moment, there is nothing there, but it just has to happen, and it just will happen, I think.
No, I love this, because from what I've learned, the major benefits or motivations for going green right now, they're more intangible than tangible. And from what I've learned about business, it's the intangibles that really matter. Your reputation with people, like people buy you first before they buy your product. So if you display traits that people can trust, in terms of if your company is net zero conscious, that would definitely lead to direct business growth. So I love that. So the next question that we have here is about how can people effectively communicate their stance on net zero? How can you effectively communicate what you do? Social media platforms, or how?
Yeah, so I suppose, if I pick up from what our clients are doing once they've completed their net zero journey, most are choosing to sort of share their footprint, share their accreditation that they've received on on getting their company benchmarked and having a report in place. Some are choosing to do sort of short little video case studies for social media. We tend to do case studies on some of the companies. So we got one really interesting one who makes bandsaw blades for the timber industry. And his journey on net zero has actually ended up in him looking at HVO diesel. And the benefit of that is he's going to have fuel security going forward. So there's a big tangible benefit there. And he's gone beyond that now, looking at the circular economy of his blades, because he sort of sharpens them 25, 30 times. So that the carbon saving, he's now talking about his own business. And he said the same. He didn't do it. He's not a tree hugger. He did net zero journey because he wanted to grow and increase the value of his business. But yeah, I think we're seeing people do a load of different things. Most are choosing to set some sort of policy up on their website, tell their story, be transparent with what their footprint is, and say what improvements they're going to be making.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, Paul, as well, I think it's such a important. So sharing and collaboration is a big part of any net zero journey. So I think that you have to share with your stakeholders what journey you're going on, and that make that central commitment of your business. So like Paul said, creating a net zero policy, getting it on your website, and telling all of your customers and your staff that this is important and this is fundamental in the future of the business and how we are going to go forward. It's not just going to be about we're driven by the best, profit, or it's about what's best for the environment and the people as well within the organization and outside the organization. So I think that's really crucial, that people are a very, very key in driving this, and behaviors, and the culture has to be set from the top.
And again, sorry, just to add on to that, I think there's a lot to be said as well for when you're actually taking that first step in calculating your carbon footprint, whether you're trying to do that yourself as an organization, or you're having a company like us or that does it for you. If you've got that data and you share that message on your website, and then you can share the progress, you're backing it up with numbers. You're backing it up by saying we've reduced our, whereas there you can see on some websites, we're a green company, we're recycling. Well, what you recycle, it doesn't really mean anything. Whereas when you've got that data behind you to back up the fact that you are on this journey and you are making steps towards reducing your emissions, if you can back that up with data, I think that's a better way of sharing and making it known that's what you're doing.
I'll come back to the question about data, because that's interesting that you mentioned that. But just taking back, I saw you mentioned that there's opportunities for new business opportunities, new skill developments, and all of this when it comes to going green, and how there's a lot more opportunities that abound in the industry. So can you tell us a bit more about that? What sort of new businesses could have arisen or could arise from this, and what new skills as well?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to pick that up?
Yeah,
I mean, in terms of skills, what we've seen is almost every business that's gone on the journey has had to either appoint or create some sort of net zero champion in the business. And then what we've been offering is sort of upskilling for the team. So either general awareness is the first skill across the business, just getting everybody on the same page. And there's some really good practical exercises that you can do. You can do your own carbon footprint, for instance, within about 5 minutes as part of a little workshop with the team. So we've done some carbon literacy training. We've done some other sort of more in-depth training to do with line managers and the management in terms of skills. Quite often someone in the business has to then start measuring and managing their energy use, which, okay, is not a skill, but it's a different task. In terms of new opportunities, we're seeing quite a lot of companies now targeting sort of electric vehicle supply chain. Solar panels is a bit more complicated, but we've got companies that are now looking to develop sort of green products, if you like, or sort of lower impact products, because that's what the market are looking for. So there is some really good opportunities. Some companies are actually choosing to move into like low carbon sectors, like offshore wind, things like that. So they may be working in the aerospace sector, but they can easily port those skills, those capabilities into offshore wind. So that would be a good example.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to just appreciate everyone for interacting in the comments. I see your questions, your answers to the questions. It's all great interaction, and there are more questions. But before that, I just want to go around the panel and just see if Adam and or Angela have questions because they've been muted for the longest.
Angela, do you have a question? Do you want to go first? Ladies first.
Ladies first.
You know me, I like playing devil's advocate. So.
I know you do. Yeah, I find it incredibly interesting, and I think it's really good to see so many businesses start to get on board with this now, because it really has been a long time coming. I mean, I am old, so I remember us talking about all this in the 1980s, and you know, we should have been on this, really hot on this ever since then, and we haven't been. We've let things slip, so it's nice now to see that businesses are getting on board with it. But I mean, I could be wrong here, but it seems to me that, you know, the government have set these targets and you know, for what we need to achieve. But it seems to me that it's the bigger businesses that are actually driving it rather than the government. Am I wrong or am I right there?
Well, I don't know. I think what I've seen, Angela, is, and it's really interesting. I was in the environmental sustainability sector about 25 years ago. And when I was talking to business about climate change and doing their bit for the environment, I was the weirdo in like flip-flops and sandals. When we started the Net Zero program, one of the first questions we always ask is what is the main driver for the business? And about 80% of the business owners say because they feel it's the right thing to do. So I think we're seeing that there are some supply chain drivers. There's a little bit of pressure from the government, but most people want to do it because they think it's the right thing and it's good for their business. So
that's really good to hear, actually, that is the attitude. And I think, and again, I've had conversations with people about this, in that a lot of businesses, they will sort of build a brick wall and think, I can't do this, I don't even know where to start, I don't know what to do. But, you know, I guess it's just take one small thing at a time, really, isn't it? You know, you don't need to make big changes overnight. It's starting with the little stuff and putting that in place. Am I right, Harry and Ashla?
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly in my experience of dealing with smaller companies, I think it's just that joined up approach. Sometimes they are doing some really good things, but they don't know what that is. So it's just bringing all of that together, giving them that baseline measurement. So then it all clicks into place, and they can then it clicks, and it's like, oh, now, you know. So they are, you know, retrofitting. They are, you know, doing things, but it's not in a joined up way, really, or there's no strategy there. And I think that's the key thing. But I think, you know, you are right, Angela. I think that there's still not enough pressure from the government overall for people. But I think the bigger companies do maybe seem to drive it because they have to do it by law. So they're bound to do it. And it's becoming more, certainly over the last 5 years. I mean, carbon reporting legislatively has been there for a long time, but it's been a tick box. Whereas now it's starting to, they're using that as a vehicle to change. And it's not just becoming, oh, we just have to do this. So they are driving it. But, you know, as Paul said, all the organizations we're working with, they really want to make a difference. You know, they really believe in it. They're not just doing it because, you know, oh, it's, you know, it's another thing to do. They really want to drive that change.
Right. Okay. So there's a few from me now then. So first one with SMEs, 5 million plus SMEs.
Yeah.
What percentage do we have that are actually engaged with green and the drive towards it? Do we know?
On the UK level?
UK level.
Wow.
I wouldn't know at this moment.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Probably,
and this is where I come back to, because we know it's a fact. Yeah, that's the thing. We know it's a fantastic thing that we should be doing. We need to drive it. And this is always a thing with change management. I know we've got Steve Murphy that's in the comments here around. Both me and him have been heavily involved with change management. And when we start doing things by law, and we start sort of like that role of saying you're not going to get this work unless you're doing this, that's when things start to dig in, because you're putting a mandate on them. Instead of from change, you're trying to actually bring them along. and you're trying to coerce them, because it's far better, as we spoke around, and from an awareness point of view, and bringing them on an understanding of why they should be doing it, the benefits they should be doing it, we get far more engagement than actually saying, bang, here's a law, now you've got to do it. Now, the thing for me is, you're going to get me on a rant here, because coming back to Andrew's saying, on the government side, the government have given bollocks to it, to be fair, because they didn't have a strategy around the energy that we have currently. They've only just put that plan in place, 2 months ago? So
it's not, you can't really call that a plan either.
No, you can't, not at all. It's far from it. So I think some of it has to be driven from industry and some of the big players as well. But I'm just wondering how we can actually get more people engaged with it, because it is the thing that we need to do. It is, and it is for me, the businesses that are going to do it, not the governments. They're a four-year period, and then they've gone, and then they're on to the next thing. So that was the one of the main things for me is around understanding and what data we could actually get around understanding what the take-up is from the smaller businesses. The next one comes back from Ashley. From a very, very beginning point of view, I think Tolu asked you around where do we start, and you were saying around this diagnostic. The thing then for me was, how do we engage on the diagnostic? Where do we go for these businesses that want to get involved? What is it they need to do to engage with this diagnostic? So where, how can they do it themselves? Is it an external?
Yeah, so I'll just follow on from what you were saying there, Adam. I was just gonna comment on this exactly. So it is as simple as understanding. So basically, the greenhouse gas protocol that we follow is the global framework to report emissions. It's split into 3 scopes. So scope 1 is your facilities, so the buildings that you own and the vehicles that company own. Okay, scope 2 is the electricity that you purchase, that you buy in. So those are the 2 main scopes to start the journey, to understand the things that you can control within your operation. So your buildings, how efficient they are, what the fossil fuels that you're burning on site, your air conditioning units, all those kind of things, retrofit solar panels, all those things is that would fall under scope 1, along with your fleet. So the vehicles that you own, whether that's a large fleet of vans, whether that's company cars or whatever, so they are combusting fossil fuels into the atmosphere. And then scope 2 is where you buy your electricity from. Is it standard UK grid mix, or are you investing in a true 100% renewable energy contract, which will reduce your emissions down to 0 within your scope 2? So those are the key things, and that you need to understand to start your journey, really. That is the boundary of your operational footprint, to understand the embedded carbon within those activities. And that they are the only activities that even these big corporates legally have to report.
Well, as you say, it's in their control. It's in your control, then, isn't it? It's what you're controlling and what you can do. So is there a standard that people can access off online or anything like that where people that we can signpost to say, right, that's where you need to go? That'll start giving you the basis point, and then get in touch with yourselves and from or the other side. Is there something that people can get their hands on straight away?
So there's the government conversion factors for converting your usage, your fuel usage, your miles, your energy usage is available on the government website. The actual conversion factors, which will change that into a CO2 equivalent, so it will give you your impact. So there is data available, but it's just understanding and making sure that that data is correct. You're recording the right things. You understand the streams ultimately of you, so it's accurate.
Yeah, it's good. There's no two ways about it, because somebody thought I was mad when I spent some time in a hotel a few months back, where I was working out what a networking event created over a year period in carbon emissions. And one networking event, one membership networking event, one event a month for 12 months was the equivalent of 3 70-foot by 70-foot cubed size of emissions. It's massive. Now, when you think around that, and if you take some of the membership organizations that meet every week, and the chapters meet nationally every week, That's a hell of an emissions, and it probably outweighs what probably some of the manufacturers actually output in some of this from a networking point of view. So it is huge, and we need to be aware of it. All of us need to be aware of it.
That's a really fascinating point, Adam.
It's phenomenal. You know, if I know some of it, you know, if you're taking it around the Solihull area, and I won't say the name of the membership, but I know there's at least 6 probably chapters around there that meet weekly, and there's people driving in from 15, 20 miles away. Well, I know straight away that the emissions that they're creating, you know, if you take, you know, as I say, 1 a month for 12 months, 25 people on average going to it, it's equivalent to those 370-foot cube bloody size CO2. So you've got mammoth amounts.
Yep.
Sorry, Tully.
I agree. And this was a very, very interesting conversation. There's so many more of the questions, but I believe that's our time. But it's really been great having you. I was going to ask about how you use data, but actually you talked about it already. So thank you for that. But everyone, please don't forget, please like the stream, you know, drop your comments. It helps the content get out there for other businesses that need this information, other businesses that are afraid of where to start from. And yes, thank you so much for your time, and catch us on the next one.
Okay, just come in. So Harry and Ashley, can you just where can people find you? So what's your website? Just very, very quickly.
Yeah, so it's www.balanced-energy.co.uk.
Yeah, and Paul, what about yourself from
that's
side?
simple. If you go on SWMAS, so southwestmas.co.uk, and then you'll find the Net Zero program on there.
Brilliant.
If it is easier for ConeX members, we are part of the portal, so you can drop myself a message and I'll contact you that way.
Definitely.
Superb.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
For that,
Thank you.
No worries, pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for joining the call. Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah.